Hello, everybody.
Good morning.
How's everyone doing today? Good.
Okay, hi,
Oh,
morning.
Colin, there you
Hi,
go.
good morning.
Good morning. Where are you based this morning, Dr. Fletcher?
I'm back home. I'm in St. Lucia.
Are you okay? Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
And how about you, Mr. Cover?
I'm in the Bahamas right now. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I'm on wet, rainy Vancouver Island where we're getting some snow in our mountains.
Okay.
Hmm.
At least your climate is holding true for the time being.
Yeah. So David, can you hear us?
I'm not seeing David or Martin on. I'm not seeing any of them. Oh, that's David there. Yeah.
Yeah, he's on site there, just getting things set up.
Yeah.
David, the international hybrid meeting Zoom moderator. He's been through it all this week.
Are you guys hearing him? I'm not hearing him.
Pardon me?
Are you guys hearing David? I'm not hearing him.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we
I'm
can
hearing
hear
you now, David. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. I'm doing a little quick sound check. Hold on one second.
Okay.
Hello. If anyone attends, would they be able to hear me also? Only by themselves. Okay, I see how it works. All right. Okay. How is everyone doing?
We okay? Yes.
Yeah. All right, nice. Jason and Amber, I think the technician is going to make you guys a host for the logistics on the sequencing of the slides. Will you how do you want to run that, Jason? Because I think you're doing the slides, right?
Yeah, I can if needed. David, one option is we set the meeting up similar to yesterday where all of our panelists are co-hosts and we can use the Zoom focus mode.
Okay. And who would do the focus? You would?
Yeah, I think if you make me a co-host, I can set all that up.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris. I'm the technician in Glasgow. Greetings to you all.
Okay.
So Amber, at the moment, you are made a host, so you are the same level of working as I am here. Jason, if you'd like me to make you a co-host, I will do that right now.
Yeah, that would be helpful. We're happy to coordinate with you, whatever works best for logistics. I think if you made me a co-host, I think we could.
Okay, so interestingly, Amber, because I have made you a host, you have to be kind to Jason there. You have to.
Okay.
Or you know what? That took away your hosting rights.
It did.
Okay. Let's give him back his hosting rights, and then all of you can become co-hosts, just in case.
Okay, what do I need to do that?
If you right click, well, if you go to the participants drop down, the white list of names, and more. Oh, hang on, I can do it here. Reclaim host.
Reclaim.
Reclaim.
There you go.
Perfect. Okay, I wasn't getting that option.
Reclaim
So.
your rights.
So what I would do is I'll make you a co-host. So that's fine, Jason. Jason Meyer, co-host.
Yes. This is
Okay, is there anybody else that needs to join the party?
I think this is it. Apologies. What's your name again?
Chris.
Chris. Nice to meet you. Chris, I'm curious how you guys would like to run this. So previous panels with Zoom meetings, we've been making panelists co-hosts and then using the focus mode, and then
Yep.
like muting all attendees and doing all that. If that works for you, I think that would be fine for us. As a co-host, I don't think I can do that. I think that's like a host function.
Yes, what I can't do from here is to speaker mode. Yeah, no, that's fine. I can sort that out from here. So there's a couple with PowerPoint presentations. Understand that's just obviously you just do your screen share. Here in Glasgow, I will pick up the screen share side, and I'll be displaying your screen share. Obviously, your audio carries on, so everybody is hearing you doing your presentation, but they're seeing the presentation and not yourselves.
Yeah, that's great.
So Chris, you'll put up both our presentations during the session then? Both ours and then UNDP's when we get to that point?
Yes, you will see here, and I'll show you now. So there you are. So when there's PowerPoint from here, that's obviously you can see that's what's coming out from us at the moment, is that RMI slide.
Okay, great.
So sorry, Chris, just to be clear, so it sounds like you'll push slides, or do you want us to push the slides?
If it's your slides, your presentation,
Great.
it's you that's pushing them. I have no way of controlling them.
Oh, great. Okay, so let me just retry that screen share option again. And yeah, there it is. Okay, perfect.
Jason, we were still, you probably know this, but we were still seeing that in like the view with the, okay, great. So are we good on the screen share side of things then?
I'm happy in Glasgow if you are.
Okay, and Jason, we don't have Camilla on yet, but you've got UNDPs queued up there that you can share if need be. Great, okay. Perfect. Now, do we need to put can we add our panelists as co-hosts so that we can go into focus mode? Is that something? I don't seem to have that option. I'm not showing on my end as a host. Even if I am set up as a host, it's not showing as an option for me.
Yeah, I don't see that as well. I think that's a function that Chris owns.
Okay, that's fine. So okay, so who else do I need to make a co-host who's a participant at the moment?
Okay, so be Dr. Fletcher, who you see here on the screen. So James Fletcher, Mr. Cover, Colin Cover, Ms. Farquharson. She's not on yet though, so I think you probably have to wait till she's on. Is that right?
Correct.
Oh, there she is. Perfect timing. Good morning, Sharon.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
We're doing well. How about you?
I'm doing well.
Excellent.
Change that background.
Chris, so what we're seeing, I think in our Zoom is the presentation of the screen. Is there a way we can see the room and David? Oh, there it is. Perfect. There's David.
So you're now seeing us, and then in the monitor behind is the current Zoom send.
Perfect. And then, Chris, I think if you make Sherry Ann a co-host, and then we can, do we have any other speakers, Amber, that we will make co-hosts?
Yeah, when Camilla joins us from UNDP, then we'll make her a co-host, and that's the last one. And Crispin is joining in person, and I heard from him this morning. So if he's not already there with you, David, he'll be there shortly.
Okay.
So as co-hosts, I currently have Amber, Sherry Ann, James, Jason, Annabelle, and Colin. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. And then if on your screen, if you could start the focus mode, I think that would be the last setting to set. And what that allows for is all of us as co-hosts, we will see everyone's video participants, but they won't be able to see each other, and they'll still be able to see us. So it's basically a way of forcing invisibility for participants to see folks that are not panelists.
Okay. Quick question. If Crispin is going to be here in person, then I need to set up a little differently. We may need to do 2 chairs at the front of the room. And so he and I sort of side by side, and maybe, yeah. Yeah, we'll do 2 chairs instead of a podium.
So while we're just getting the final tech pieces set up for our panelists, do you have any questions this morning? Do you want me to just do a quick run through of the flow of the event?
A quick run through would be good.
Okay, great. So we'll start on the hour, and David's our moderator, so he'll be moderating there virtually, and he'll do a quick welcome, and then he'll turn it over to Jason Meyer from RMI, who will do a brief overview of the Energy Transition Academy, and then we'll move into introductions of the panelists, of yourselves. Then we have just over a half an hour for our panel discussion, what we're calling our fireside chat. So that's meant to be quite casual in terms of being, facilitated discussion. And we have a series of questions that hopefully you've received that we'll go through, some that are for the whole panel to respond to, and then a few that'll be that are tailored to you individually. After that, we will go into a quick slide presentation by UNDP of their Africa mini-grid program, and then we'll wrap up. So it's a quick hour. We don't actually have the chance for audience questions in this session just because it's such a tight time frame, and also having our fireside chat model, I think we'll have that kind of Q&A sort of style, so hopefully that's okay. And I think that's pretty much it in a nutshell, unless there's anything you want to add in, Jason.
No, just a real thank you all for your time today. I know it's early, mid-afternoon, late for some folks across the world, but just really appreciate your all's time today, and we look forward to your insights, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We really appreciate your time and your patience. I know we've been asking for a lot of things over the last week and pestering you guys for bios and phone numbers and everything else. So thank you for bearing with us, as we just want to make sure everything went off without a hitch today, and we sure appreciate all your efforts.
Hello. Okay.
Sherland, you're in Barbados?
Yes, I'm in Barbados.
Okay. I think I saw you on a meeting, but I am moving house right now, so I should have been in a secret meeting with you guys, but my house moving has changed. Well, I'm moving house. I'm moving from Grenada when I'm now in the Bahamas, right? So it has been quite a challenge.
Okay.
Yeah. But I should be settled enough. I should be able to rejoin the group in about a day or two.
Great.
All right.
So I think we have a few minutes. We're just waiting for Camilla from UNDP to join us and Crispin to arrive at the pavilion. So for our panelists, if you want a minute, feel free. You can turn off your camera. You're welcome to stay on and chat, or keep your camera on. Totally at your discretion. But we'll call on you if you if you need a few minutes to do something else while we're waiting here.
I guess we have about 12 minutes, right, before we start.
Yeah. Good morning, Martin. You're muted.
Muted, Martin.
I locked participant mutes. Sorry.
Oh, right. Okay, good.
You're all unlocked. There you go, Martin.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry to be a little bit late. I have connectivity issues, but Colin, Sharianne, and James, nice to see you.
Good to be here.
Congrats on the move, Colin.
The move is still in progress. We're in the house, but trust me, there's a lot still to do.
Yeah, I told my dad that that you'd be speaking, and he said to tell you that.
Okay, great.
It's like, okay.
Good morning, Camilla.
Good morning.
And so there's really no need for this other than because we're going to be moving people around,
No,
other than
we're,
us maybe seeing
we're
what's
just
happening
finishing
Can I
setting up
shift
the
this a little
in-person version of this. So
right now.
So Camilla, really nice to see you. We're just going to ask them to make you a co-host. Chris, if you can make Camilla a co-host as well, that would be great.
Oh yeah, that's right, because I'll be sharing my own slide deck later on.
oh, great, Camilla. That's a question. Would you like to push your own slides, or would you like me to do that for you? Either way works.
Oh, so if that's possible, then yes.
Okay.
I'll give you a hint, and that's good. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, I'll just share it really quick and confirm these are the slides. 1 second. All right, so this should be the deck.
Yep, that is the deck. Perfect. Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
No, thanks.
Great. So Camilla, we just did a little run of show. Did you have any questions? Did you want me just to quickly, while we're waiting here, go through things for you? Would that be helpful?
Yeah, why not? I did read the agenda, and if we could do a quick refresher. I understand I come in at the end and that I have 8 minutes to present AMP. But yeah, absolutely. If we have some minutes, if you could do that, thanks.
Sure. Okay. So we'll start on the hour. And as you can see with our moderator, David Gums there, he's in person at COP. We also have another panelist, Crispin Dovreen, who's joining us in person as well. And the rest of the panel is virtual. So it's a hybrid event. And the first intro will be to the Energy Transition Academy. So we'll spend about 5 minutes where Armand will give an overview of our offerings with that program. And then David will move into introducing the panelists and yourself as speakers for the day. And then we will have, we'll go into our panel discussions, so just over a half an hour for that.
Yeah.
And then from there, once that wraps up, then David will introduce you again and turn it over to you in terms of the presentation that you'll provide. And then we'll wrap up. And it's quite a quick session. We only have an hour. So unfortunately, we're not going to have Q&A from the audience just due to all the agenda details. But I'm sure that some members of the audience will probably follow up if they have questions. And hopefully the facilitated format with the panel will help to cover some of the audience questions that they may potentially have.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, we really look forward to your presentation. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Okay.
Chris, are you available? Do you hear us?
Was that a question for Crispin?
We're trying to connect with Chris, the
Chris. Okay. I think they're trying to connect with you.
Masks on, mask off.
However you're comfortable. I'm good with that.
Hi, Crispin. Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. I'm happy for the opportunity. Thank you.
But the glasses
Pardon?
right here. Pointed up, just to tell. That's the sound.
Better?
Yeah.
Hi, Chris, are you available?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, great. Thank you so much for, I know this is a lot of support, so thank you so much. Can you make, Camilla has joined us. Could you make her a co-host? And then the last function is if you could just turn on the focus mode, and I think we would be good to go.
That is Camilla as a co-host. Focus mode is enabled here. It's following you all around.
Oh, great. Okay.
In fact, if I hang on a second, so if you look to the UK, if somebody else starts speaking, then it will follow them.
Oh, perfect.
So we'll do a quick mic check here in person. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, even when I'm turned.
It's a little soft.
A little soft. Better now, right?
Yes. Okay,
so I may not, well, I have to look at the camera when I'm asking a question and not at the screen. And then let's try for, okay, this is probably better for me. And Crispin, do you want the live, this mic or? Try it.
Makes no difference to me. I think once you can hear me, I'm fine. I suspect you can though.
How's Crispin sound?
It's not as loud. David's very clear now, but Crispin's a little bit muffled.
How about that?
That's unusual. No, nobody's the other way around.
It's like, stop, you're too loud. How about now?
Is that better?
There's this is going to be a limitation if you both trying to share that one mic because it's quite far away from both of you. It would probably work better.
Okay, is this better?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's on?
Yeah, it's on all the time.
Okay, great.
So for our panelists, this event is being recorded, so we will have access to it after the session as well, and we'll make sure that you guys receive a copy of the link for that as well. AOS uses an event summary after all of the events that they post on their website as well.
Amber, I think I'm going to start sharing the title slide as kind of the intro, if that works for everyone.
Yep, sounds good.
Hi,
Ben.
All right, folks, just starting the screen share now. David, out of curiosity, are there folks in person?
Yes, so we have Mr. Ben, a groupie, a fan. No, our colleague Ben is here, and we have two persons in the audience. Are you with us today? Will you be asking us a number of questions? All right. Yeah, so we have two persons and folks might trickle in. It's an open session, so people walk by and jump in anytime. So you never know how it goes. Thank you for coming.
Just a reminder to all our speakers as well that you'll need to mute and unmute when you're speaking during the event. And that'll help to make sure we don't have any feedback as well.
Great. And then Dr. Fletcher, your video's off, so if needed, feel free there. Perfect. Great.
Okay, I think we're ready whenever you are, David.
All right. So I give the signal, we're ready to go live? Just give me the cue when we're actually live. Good day and welcome everyone. I'm so glad you could join us here today for today's session. This session is Reimagining Energy Leadership, Achieving Our Climate Goals Through Peer, Community, Faster, Together. We're at COP26 in the AOSIS Pavilion. My name is David Gums and I am the director of RMI's Islands Energy Program, and I will be your event moderator today. Our discussion today brings together energy leaders from the Alliance of Small Island States. These are countries at the forefront of implementing climate solutions. Our speakers will share insights and capacity development and peer community opportunities to empower leaders to achieve our climate goals faster together. We look forward to having an engaging fireside conversation to hear about their work and perspectives and their actions towards climate resilience. We will introduce RMI's newest initiative, the Energy Transition Academy, which aims to empower energy professionals to be leaders in clean energy economies in the global South and have a meaningful role in international climate action. We'll also hear from the United Nations Development Program with a preview of the Africa Mini-Grids Program, an initiative funded by the Global Environment Fund that will be implemented by UNDP and RMI. The program has the potential to be scaled to other global geographies, including AOSIS communities. Today's session will focus on the importance of capacity development to support energy leaders in tackling climate change and leading the energy transition to resilient, low carbon future. And with that note, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Jason Meyer, Principal for RMI's Energy Transition Academy, who's joining us virtually. Jason?
Good morning, evening, afternoon, everyone, especially to our panelists. Thank you for your time today. My name is Jason Meyer, principal for RMI's Energy Transition Academy, or ETA. I'm honored to share a few words on the topic of this conversation, capacity development, as well as preview the ETA, a new program of RMI launching in 2022. For us, there's a question around why is capacity development critical, and really excited to hear from our panelists today. From my end, I would posit that the climate divide is also a leadership divide. Despite their low contributions to greenhouse gas emissions, countries across sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, and in particular the island regions are already experiencing health, economic, environmental, safety impacts of climate change. Yet energy practitioners in these regions have expressed that they are often marginalized from the international climate community. For example, they often lack access to timely relevant information, to the peer networking needed to address the unique challenges of upgrading energy systems while also trying to advance SDGs and recover from climate emergencies. And without these resources, these leaders frequently confront complex, perhaps impossible energy challenges in isolation. If we are to achieve success, energy leaders need to be equipped with the right set of tools to be able to meet both global climate goals and local development priorities. It will require us moving from top-down, technically oriented solutions to those that also incorporate the often overlooked components of leadership, skills, and capacity building, as the energy transition is ultimately a human transition. Our approach, the Energy Transition Academy, a global platform for energy leaders to directly connect with peers locally and globally who are confronting similar challenges. The ETA consists of 3 primary initiatives: experience exchange program, hands-on experience with decision-making in peer settings; leadership accelerator, a cohort approach to learning, networking, and peer collaboration; and 3, a global learning platform, access to curated content, training, insights, and templates, amplifying experience, telling stories, providing real-world examples. These offerings will be developed in collaboration with regional organizations and partners to ensure our collective efforts have the greatest impact in building capacity and scaling efforts in the energy transition. To help inform our design of the Energy Transition Academy, we've been in conversation with energy practitioners across the Global South. And I've also reviewed a number of offerings and platforms at this intersection of energy and capacity development and leadership. There's a lot of platforms and offerings. Our design is meant to be demand driven, so we continue to reach out to prospective participants, partners, friends to inform our offering and focus. In these dialogues, we continue to hear the need for capacity development, empowering the very people and communities responsible for the energy transition, as well as coordinated cross-border collaborative approaches, jointly bringing to bear our limited resources, time, and attention, and leveraging our shared experience. Sessions like today are a unique opportunity for us to hear about what's working and how, and we want to learn from these best practices that exist and find synergies where we can contribute and build upon the lessons learned and regional needs, and ensure these considerations are incorporated into our design. In our outreach, we have explored other energy and capacity development offerings. Many of these are doing great and important work at all levels. We find that what we can learn from these offerings is what is required to provide capacity development oriented to scaled impact. And we find across all of these offerings, there's 5 common key catalysts that must be baked into the design. The first thing is learning. Curriculum in a variety of formats ranging from technical content to soft skills and operational competency. Community, local and global networks to connect practitioners, amplify their work. 3, experience, an exchange that allows peer-to-peer engagement and contextual learning. 4, innovation, co-creation of solutions and projects, not only for the innovation that's required, but also as a form of applied learning. And 5, resources, not just funding, also information, perhaps mentorship opportunities, exchanges, access, etc. For me, these 5 catalysts really speak to the opportunity of coordinated strategic capacity development, the opportunity to amplify the voices of energy practitioners, leaders, and communities, elevating their experience, and then through peer community, empowering the champions that we all need to achieve our shared climate goals faster together. Very quickly, before we turn it over to David and our panelists, I'm excited to preview the ETA's 2022 launch offerings. As always, feel free to reach out to us to learn more with our website. But 4 things on tap for us. The first thing is a fellowship program. So early next year, a pilot cohort focused on supporting Caribbean project partners, and then a global cohort launch later in the year. Our initial fellowship program is focused on distributed renewable energy development, including microgrid, solar, battery systems. Fellows will have the opportunity to participate in tailored learning events, networking opportunities to build their community of practice while working alongside regional project teams on clean energy projects. The second thing is a leadership accelerator. So a cohort training model that will be facilitated over the course of several months to develop solutions to shared and individual problems, building confidence. For example, a cohort of regulators in Africa, the Caribbean, and the Pacific focused on regulatory approaches with respect to emerging resilience needs, just as an example. Our third offering next year, the Africa School Regulation. So initially a virtual platform to develop, teach, and disseminate sound energy regulation and policy in Africa. This is in partnership with the Florence School of Regulation, the NL Foundation, Sustainable Energy for All, and University of Cape Town. And finally, the Africa Mini Grids program. We'll be hearing much more on this from Ms. Camila Gonzalez, the Global Energy Advisor at UNDP, at the end of our session today. And just to note, RMI is supporting the communities of practice component of this program, and we're really excited to hear more and work with the UNDP on this really outstanding effort. Thank you so much for your time. And with that, I'd like to give the floor back to David, and again, provide a special note of thanks to our panelists. David.
Thank you so much, Jason. Now that we've heard a little bit about the ETA, we're going to jump right into the other segment, which is first introduce our panelists, and then we'll take some time to have a quick fireside chat and ask a few questions and get a few answers. So let's talk a little bit about who's here with us today. We're honored to have Dr. James Fletcher, Managing Director of Solarican Limited. Dr. Fletcher is a former Minister of Public Service, Information Broadcasting, Sustainable Development, Energy, Science, and Technology in St. Lucia. In 2019, he was selected by the Chevening Scholarship Program as one of 35 global change makers. After heading the Caribbean's delegation on the Paris Agreement, after heading the Caribbean delegation on the Paris Agreement, he is the founder and managing director of the consulting company Solarican. We have Mr. Colin Cover, former general manager of Grenada Electricity Services, Grenlec. Mr. Colin Cover is a native of Jamaica and is a 1975 graduate of the University of West Indies engineering faculty. Since 1978, he has been working solely in the electric utilities, commencing in Grand Bahama, then Dominica, and finally in Grenada. For the last 10 years, he has been an advocate of the installation of renewables and is frustrated at the slow pace of their installation and the bureaucracy that hinders renewable development. We also have Ms. Sherrianne Farquharson, knowledge management and capacity development expert at the Caribbean Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, CCRE. Ms. Sherrianne Farquharson is CCRE's knowledge management and capacity building expert. In this role, Ms. Farquharson fuses her passion for emergence of a Caribbean powered by a blue and green economy with the opportunity to inspire the next generation of sustainability professionals through initiatives such as CCRE Internship Program and the development of the CARIBCOM Energy Knowledge Hub. She's a certified energy manager and has completed training and certification in solar PV installation. Ms. Farquharson is a member of the Jamaica Society of Energy Engineers and the Council of Women in Energy and Environmental Leadership. Here with me in person is Mr. Crispin Dorvorn, Climate Change and Disaster Risk Management Coordinator for the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, OECS. Mr. Crispin is currently Program Director for Climate and Disaster Resilience at OECS Commission, a national of St. Lucia. He previously worked for many years with the government of St. Lucia in the field of fisheries, natural resources, environment, and energy, with his position being that of Chief Sustainable Development and Environment Officer. In that position, he has served as his country's lead technical negotiator on climate change. For our panel discussion, we'll have a presentation by Ms. Camila Gonzalez, Global Energy Advisor, Africa Mini-Grids Program Coordinator, United Nations Development Program. Camila is a Global Energy Advisor with Nature, Climate, and Energy team at UNDP, and the coordinator of UNDP's GEF-funded Africa Mini-Grids Program. Her work in the energy sector spans 20 years and combines role in the private sector management consulting with international organizations, including UNDP and the Inter-American Development Bank. She has evaluated investments, advised policymakers, and designed and implemented development projects in multiple energy subsectors in various countries in Latin America, the Caribbean, and Africa. It is my honor to have you all with us here today. And now to dive into the conversation, I would like to take a few minutes to pose a few questions to the panel. And I'd like to ask each of the panelists, what are some of the wins your organization or region has achieved to implement clean energy projects? I'd also like to know, what are the 2 or 3 capacity development factors that were most impactful in achieving these project successes? Happy to have any takers. Otherwise, we'll start from the top. If we could start with you, Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Crispin, good to see you across in Glasgow. I hope you're keeping warm. We've had some wins. We haven't had as many as I think we should have, and I quite understand and agree with Colin's frustration with the bureaucracy and the low pace of progress. It's something that I share from my vantage point where I am, particularly given, I think, where we started and looking at the fact that we really should have progressed a lot further than that. In St. Lucia, starting, I guess, when I became the Minister of Responsibility for Sustainable Development, Energy, Science, and Technology, that was in 2011, December 2011, so that's 10 years ago. We were in a position where we had virtually no renewable energy on the ground. Now we have a 3.2 megawatt solar PV plant that is operated by the utility company, so we can count that as a win. We've seen some slow implementation, slow conversion of street lighting to LED, so we can count that as a win. We've seen some marginal progress with our geothermal development, not as much as we would like, and I think that's something we can dive into a little bit later on when we look at the international structures that can facilitate the quicker movement of some of these projects. But there have been others where we haven't seen the kind of progress that we would have liked. So for example, the reform of electricity legislation, which is really critical for the development of a robust RE sector, that hasn't happened. We do have a multi a multi-sector utility regulator. So we have the National Utilities Regulatory Commission, which was established, I think, in 2016. But again, it has, because the legislation is not in place, it is a little constrained in what it can do and how well it can regulate the electricity sector. So there have been some wins, but clearly nowhere near. And we had a wind project that was on track. But one of the things that we never cater for when we're looking at energy and energy transitions in our region is political risk. And I think that was one that suffered from unfavorable political conditions with a change in government. As far as capacity development, I think that there's some things that we can certainly say have improved. The presence of CCRE, the Caribbean Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, I think is one that we can look to and be thankful that we now have an agency at the regional level that is responsible for helping to drive this energy transition along. The work that the Caribbean Development Bank has done in funding and the focus that it has in renewable energy and sustainable energy in particular, I think that is also quite heartening. One of the things that we were able to do very early on is to develop a partnership with RMI, Carbon War Room, that no longer exists, but is now part of RMI, and the Clinton Climate Initiative. And I think that helped us to develop a lot of the capacity that we needed in the early stages. And that certainly is a model that I think we need to look at, because many of our countries don't have the resources, they don't have the personnel, and the personnel who are there, not all of them have that level of training. So this getting support from organizations like RMI, like CCI, Clinton Climate Initiative, and others, getting that technical support is certainly very important in helping push us along that pathway to transition. So I think I'll stop here, David, and allow the other panelists to respond.
Thank you so much for that perspective. Colin, what are your thoughts on the wins for your area?
David, basically, the wins I see are much like what James have seen. I've seen certain, I think CCRE is a big win. It has not yet helped us to get much concrete in the ground, if I may use that term, in terms of renewable, but I certainly think in terms of capacity development and driving us in that direction, it certainly has. For me in the Caribbean, unfortunately, all the wins I see are basically in the Dutch and the French islands, where those wins are driven by the government policies of the people in Europe. For example, the wins in ruined farms in Aruba, and certainly islands like Saba, which are a very small island, but they seem to be driving to 100% renewables there in the near future. Unfortunately, we in the English-speaking Caribbean have not had many wins that I can say of. A lot of potential, geothermal in Dominica and in St. Lucia, geothermal in Grenada, and Nevis, and all these places are there, but somehow seem not to have turned into projects. And also, even I'm gonna have to come back a bit and at a little bit at our regulators, who seem more focused on giving individuals a little 3 kilowatt on their house rather than getting the utility. They seem a bit averse to getting utility scale up that can really make an impact. And to there, for example, in Grenada, we have 30 acres of land that we had leased as a company to get renewables on, and have been so far, again, just by regulations, hampered from an uncertainty caused by the regulations, or let me say, having a regulator and the regulations not being fully implemented. So as a private company, not knowing what the returns are going to be, the company was a bit hesitant to go ahead. So those are some of the red tape that I'm seeing. If the regulations had been published and been there, then investors could have made a decision. One other little, it's not yet a win, but I have certainly seen that what is happening now, there seem to be a lot of people who you'd not normally think would be willing to invest in this, now being invested in renewables. I see a lot of energy companies now willing to come to the utilities and say, hey, can we joint venture with you in some renewables? And I think that is a very good step, because we just did not seem to be able to rise to be able to the level where GCF and all those other funds seem to be able to. If you're not having a $10 million project, they're not looking at you. But I think now we're seeing a number of private companies, and particularly the energy and the diesel engine manufacturers, coming into the utilities and now saying, hey, can we joint venture with you on some renewables? I think that is probably a wave of the future that I'm looking forward to seeing.
Okay, there are a couple of points that you made that I'll probably try to dig in a little bit later, but I'm curious about, and I'll just set it up for you so you can think about it a little bit, about the Dutch islands that you reference versus the Dutch territories versus maybe the larger English-speaking Caribbean, and some of the differences that made that so much more successful. All right. So with that said, if we can, who's up next? Yeah, Sherry Ann. Would you kindly share your perspective?
Thanks, David, and thanks to the previous panelists for endorsing the SICRI, as a part of the successes in the region. One of the key things for the SICRI is that we are for the people, by the people. Everything that we do is for our citizens, and we are a part of the ecosystem of the Caribbean. Some of the wins that we've had, we've implemented 3 flagships, the integrated resource and resilience planning, where we go in and we work with our member states to help them develop these electricity sector plans. And that helps us to answer some of the challenges that Dr. Fletcher mentioned, with regulation and we get the political people in the room, and we try to decide with the technology and everything, the economic impact, so we can make those decisions that will help us to see more installations of renewables. One of the other things that we've done, once we've done these IRRPs, we then are able to look at those suite of projects coming out of that. And we have our project preparation facility to help increase the amount of bankable projects that we have and being installed in the region. So we can look at where the opportunities are based on these electricity sector plans, based on the policies and the targets. And we will give that technical support so that our project developers are able to get the financing. And even if it is that after we've done all the technical work and the proposal is ready and they can't find a financing, SICRI also offers matchmaking, because at the end of the day, what we need are having those renewable technologies installed on the ground. And then to round that out, we have the CARICOM Energy Knowledge Hub, which is designed to pull together all of the lessons that we're learning while we're doing these IRPs, while we're implementing projects through the project preparation facility, pulling our different practitioners across the region together in a community of practice to share ideas, to be able to learn from each other. There's also a learning management system, and we can get more into the details, but I see this as a win for the region, because we are learning from each other and we're sharing freely all of the data that we've been getting. And as we do these different projects, capacity building is at the core. So outside of what is shared in the Knowledge Hub, while we're doing the IRRPs, we're doing capacity building with the stakeholders so that they, 1, can understand what the plan is that's being developed, and 2, they can actively take part in developing these plans in the future. So those are some of the wins that we have seen, and we've really pushing these 3 flagship programs to ensure that we can get to what the region really wants. The current target is 47% renewables by 2027 for the region. We still have a ways to go, but we are doing everything to make sure we can get those implementations done.
Fantastic, fantastic. Crispin, how about you share a little bit about it?
Thanks. Good day, everyone. Well, a lot has been said, which I think the context has been set. I think the previous speakers have basically laid out the canvas as how things are. They painted a picture of the reality. But I think I want to maybe express a little optimism, because if we paint with a broad brush and we look at, for example, what has happened over the last 2 to 3 decades in places like Barbados, in places like St. Lucia, with the uptake of solar water heaters, right? That's primary application of solar energy, right? We haven't seen the same level of success with photovoltaics and so on. But at the same time, in some countries now, you're getting people to actually start thinking about incorporating PV or solar electricity as part of their mortgage, which is something that didn't happen before. So you're getting a certain degree of interest at the level of the ordinary consumer, the homeowner, or the person who's interested in building a home. You're also seeing the commercial banks increasingly, and some of the development banks, actually, like in the national development banks, that is, as opposed to the regional ones only, they're actually going into, actually having, setting up loan facilities to enable business, private sector and homeowners to invest in solar, sometimes at preferential rates. From a capacity standpoint, I think it's worth noting that there's a growing mass of persons who qualified in installation of solar, and just as one example, well, solar is certainly the most accessible, type of renewable energy for most. It's scalable from a single unit to utility scale. But recently, for example, within the OECS, the Eastern Caribbean, the OECS Commission, along with some other partners, trained in almost 200 persons in PV installation. And so you're having that critical mass of persons who and businesses who will be able to when we're able to overcome that hurdle that is imposed by the restrictive policy and legislative environment, we'll be able to go out there. We wouldn't have, there'll not be that kind of shortage of qualified persons to install. And the last thing I want to emphasize, and the previous speakers, they mentioned it, was the whole issue of partnerships. At one time, there were a number of different entities trying to promote renewables in the Caribbean. Now people have recognized that there's a common aim, there's a common objective, for example, as expressed under our nationally determined contributions. And so people are coming together, private sector, governments, development partners, civil society, the financial sector, coming together towards that common aim. And that partnership, I think, is going to be critical and help us to get to that threshold where we can make that breakthrough.
Thank you so much for that. I'd like to do a little, I guess, target the questions a little bit to the different panelists at this point. Dr. Fletcher, we'll start with you. With your experience as a former minister and part of the Coalition of Small Islands that have been actively involved in lobbying at the UN and COP, what do you see as the structural changes at the international level that can help enhance regional capacity development that will enable and support the energy transition? Dr. Fletcher.
Thanks. If you'll permit me to answer this in two ways, I think at the international level, but there are also some structural changes that must take place at the domestic level to make this happen. But I'll speak to your question. We have small markets. In the case of St. Lucia, the peak demand for energy is 60 megawatts. And there are certain constraints when you're speaking about a transition to renewable that would make our market not as attractive to some of the big players in the sector. So I think one of the things that we have to look at is how do we, and because of that, there's a high level of risk that's involved with many of the investments, many of the investments that will allow that transition to take place. So how do we make those funds more easily accessible for countries like St. Lucia that have these challenges of size? How do we get the international community to understand that the same rules that it applies for a renewable energy project in Europe or in Africa is not the same that it applies for the Caribbean because of the smallness of size, because of the challenges that they involve. How do we de-risk a lot of the these investments? How do we reduce the risk? How do we transfer the risk? I think that's the first thing. The second thing we have to look at is how do we also build in a certain amount of technical capacity into these projects, into these into that support? Because again, one of the things we've found is that because of, yes, as Crispin said, we certainly are in a much better place now where human resource capacity is concerned. But for many of these projects that we need to implement, we still do not have the level of human resource at our national levels, at our regional levels that we need. So I think there has to be some effort placed in capacity building with some of these projects. I think that's important. Then going back to what I said about at the domestic level, we have to address the issues of that cause the bottlenecks at the domestic level. So for example, the legislative framework has to be put in place, because even if we get in many of our countries the sort of investment that we're looking at, we still don't have the domestic legislative environment that will provide the transparency, that will provide the comfort to these investors to know that they will be treated fairly. So we have to address the domestic issues with the utility regulators. Ensuring that you have an arm's length utility regulator, ensuring that all of the legislation is in place. In many of our countries, they're still operating under those restrictive electricity supply acts that give monopolies to the incumbent utility. So I think these things have to be looked at. And also, one of the reasons that we were able to have some level of success when I was a minister, well, I was a minister for both climate change and energy. In many of our countries, there's a disconnect between energy and climate. So while the countries may recognize that really dealing with the energy transition is important for us addressing our climate-related issues, that is not reflected in policy, that is not reflected in the way in which our public sector is organized. So I think, yes, there's a certain reconstruction of the international community that has to take place, particularly with respect to making finance more easily accessible and reducing the transactional cost of that finance. But also we have to pay attention to some of the things that we need to do domestically to be able to use that finance, use that investment and put it to use so that we don't have these long gestation periods that we have for projects in our region. It really is too long. And for a region where the average price of the average electricity tariff is between 35 and 45 US cents per kilowatt hour, it means it's attractive. There is a quick win that you could get from coming in and bringing the price of electricity down. You know, solar and wind are very attractive and very feasible in our region. It's just taking too much time. So the political will, the action at the domestic level is as important as the change in approach at the international level.
Thank you so much for that perspective. Sherry-Ann, based on your experience with the Caribbean community and CCRE and the efforts to develop and create and develop the CARICOM Energy Knowledge Hub and the Regional Universities Network, tell us how you see this model helping to further capacity development to address climate change. What resources, tools, or support would enhance these regional efforts?
Thanks, David. So with the CARICOM Energy Knowledge Hub, the CEKH, we have a collection of resources. We also have a map viewer that digitizes and shows some of these resources in a GIS format so that we can make data available and information available to energy practitioners in the region. And there are lots of resources that look at the benchmarks, so measuring the performance of how are we doing, because if we don't know how we're doing, we probably don't realize how much more work we have left to do. Sharing finance toolkits to help develop sustainable energy projects. And the best practices that we're learning, we're sharing this as well within the Knowledge Hub. There's also courses within the CEKH. So there's an IRRP course, there's an electric vehicle course, and there are other courses that we are continuously developing and making available. And these are developed jointly and delivered with the Regional Universities Network. because we want to make sure that when we identify the capacity gaps, we do what we can to help to fill it. And a number of persons have mentioned the partnerships. We cannot do it alone. And so there is the community of practice to facilitate that sort of collaborative approach to working on projects where practitioners can come, they can ask their questions, they can respond to, questions. We can have discussions about different issues that are happening and how together we can approach that. And with the Regional Universities Network, one of the other things that we're doing, not just with the delivering of content in terms of lectures, but also research. We need to be able to ensure that the technologies that we want to deploy in the region are contextually relevant. So we're doing research on ocean energy to identify locations and technologies for the region. We're doing research on our energy access challenges so that we can develop these microgrids that can be implemented. And we know that the microgrids has to be a holistic process, not just putting in the technology, but you have to look at how is this community going to be able to sustain. So we're looking at training persons within the communities to be able to maintain and look for value added opportunities for them to earn and be able to pay for the maintenance of the technology. And all of this, we realize we have to work together. And so what we need as a region to enhance our efforts is really that collaborative approach. We need the partners from outside the region who may be coming with financing, who may be coming with some sort of technical expertise to work with us as partners, not just try to come in and treat the regional organizations and the national organizations as portals to get information, put something in and check some things off, but to really work with us as partners, because that's how we're going to be able to move this transition that we need.
Thank you for that point. We're stronger together. Crispin, tell me a little bit about the OECS role in climate resilience. Tell us about what you see as the role for collaboration in advancing efforts on climate change and clean energy development. What does effective regional coordination of resources do to facilitate stronger capacity development?
Thanks. One of the points made earlier is the fact that our islands are small, we have small populations, we have small economies. And so the whole issue of economies of scale doesn't apply when you're looking at individual countries. But when you pull a number of countries together, you take a regional approach, then you're in a position to realize better economy and of course reduce your transaction costs, etc. So the OECS that is one of the things that the OECS tries to do in the Eastern Caribbean. And one of the initiatives that we have is known as the Eastern Caribbean Solar Challenge, where we're looking to accelerate the diffusion of solar, decentralized solar in the Eastern Caribbean. And we, apart from trying to bring governments together, the Solar Challenge also involves the private sector, and we're also trying to bring in homeowners and so on, working together. We're also trying to bring the development partners. So everybody putting in, playing their part to make it a reality. So it's not, so not just countries, but as many players as possible in the different countries. And so that's the idea of scaling up in that sense. And from you were talking about climate resilience. Now, very often, in the past, when we spoke about, say renewables, once it was an energy conversation, it was automatically thought to be a question of mitigation, emissions reduction. That may be so. Now, of course, it's worth noting that countries like St. Lucia, for example, contribute, very minuscule amounts into the global, emissions budget, for want of another term. St. Lucia emits in the region of 0.0015 of 1%, to global emissions. So it's minuscule. So one can argue that countries like that really shouldn't be interested in reducing emissions. But one, we want to show our commitment. We want to lead by example. We want to play our part. But we also want to transition to low carbon economies. But more critically, we see these efforts as being part of our overall climate resilience drive. Because, for example, when you have a situation where, let's just say you're hit by an extreme hurricane, and as you know, that's no fantasy, it's something that we see in the region all the time. 2017 is a case in point. Sometimes your power may be knocked out for days or weeks. How do your hospitals function? How do your schools function, etc.? If you at least able to, to keep your hurricane shelters going, so that is a critical component, okay, and that's a critical part of the reasoning behind going renewable in that sense. So you can ensure continuity of operation, and build that overall climate resilience. And like, as I said, the OECS through initiatives like the Eastern Caribbean Solar Challenge is striving to push that agenda forward, so that we can build that overall resilience in the private sector, but in the public sector, and in fact, across and across the region and at various levels in the different countries.
Thank you so much for that. There's so many things we could dig into, and I hope we have some time to do so later on. Colin, with your extensive experience in utility management of utilities, including the former chair of Carolic, which is the Caribbean Electricity Utility Service Corporation, what role do you see for peer-to-peer learning, such as experience exchanges or communities of practice, in developing capacity, especially at the utility level, to advance energy resilience projects?
Well, when this topic was given about the peer-to-peer learning, of course, my mind instantly went back to Carolic, because it does have a number of functions where basically it's an association of the utilities in the Caribbean. And they do have many training programs, and they have engineering conferences, CEOs conferences, financial conferences, safety conferences, renewable conferences, GIS conferences. But as I was thinking about it, for this, I'm thinking that I think our renewable energies conference need to take on probably a little, instead of being so technically inclined, and I'm no longer a CEO, but I do think I have some friends in Carolic still, as I can still call the ED there and sort of put an idea in his head. But I really do think that we need to change the focus of our renewables, apart from just the technical side, to something more about financing and getting that going. Because as I said, my recent experience has been that there are some non-traditional people who are now ready to step up and finance some of these projects. And as I said, my efforts with Green Climate Fund, never brought any fruit, but certainly I see, private investors coming in and say, we will partner with you. They're not giving us grants, but they'll partner and they will work with us. And then, I mean, even to when there's, I just gonna say something here, that we said to them, listen, we're financially strapped right now. We have to build a substation. These guys came and said, hold on, we'll include the substation in the partnering. So, even though they were talking to us about building a PV, utility scale PV, about 5-6 megawatts of PV. When we said, boy, well, it's financially strapped, we have to build a substation to supply the north of the island. They said, we'll put that in the package too. So, there are now innovative people who are out there who are really willing to help. And I think we just now need to, they're willing to do like build, own, operate, and transfer, so, there are so many options out there apart from just grant money that, and I don't think the most at least not the privately owned utilities, they know grant money is not available to them, but I think that they're more interested in just loans that can really make sense for them. They're not necessarily interested in grant, but they want just loans that can make sense to them, that they can get these projects up. And I think really the alternate finances, in my mind, is where we need to let more people know about these, and I think that particularly the privately owned utilities will be able to make some good headway with these alternate fundings.
Okay, thank you so much. there's so much, so many points here that I'd love to explore a lot deeper, but I think that we'll probably save those for another session and continue this discussion, because there's so much value in everything everyone has been offering so far. I'm gonna roll in what we'll call the rapid round session, and so let's say 30 seconds. We're running a little bit tight on time, but let's say based on your experience, and this is going to go to everyone. Based on your experience, what would be your call to action around capacity development to fuel the energy transition and climate goals? And we'll go in the same order. So Dr. Fletcher, we'll start with you.
Thanks, David. I think partnerships, and partnerships among everyone. One of the things that we found very useful and very productive in St. Lucia was the government utility partnership. I think that is something that very often is overlooked or is minimized. You must have a strong partnership between the government and the utility company. The utility company, particularly when you're operating under a legislative environment that gives the utility company certain monopolistic authority, then the utility company must buy into what you're doing. So partnerships between among government, utility company, private sector. The private sector wants to get involved. The hotels and others want to move away from using fossil fuels to generate electricity because using RE is cheaper for them. But the legislative environment does not allow that. So I think the most important thing for me is partnerships domestically, partnerships regionally, and I was pleased to hear of some of the things that are happening with CCRE and with the OECS Commission, but also partnerships internationally. I think the more partnerships we can build, then the lighter the load and the less our transactional costs become, and the more we're able to de-risk some of these things that we're doing. So that's a big one for me.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going in order of the introductions. So Colin, you're up next.
Again, I'm going to probably make, I don't know if it's controversial, but I think the capacity is there. It's just that it is so insular that people don't know about it. And let me give you an example. I'm with Carolick. I can pick up, if I have a problem, I can pick up my phone and I call Trevor, and I'm in the CEO in St. Lucia. I can call Roger in Barbados, or I can call Thornley in St. Vincent, and the CEOs have a good rap. However, I find that my engineers do not call the other Caribbean engineers, and I think that, so I think there's good capacity there. It's just that they are not linked. We are insular. I find that, for example, they will not call another engineer and say, hey, have you having this, you have the same engineer, do you have this problem? They'll call somebody outside the region for that. And I really do think that the capacity already exists. It is the linkages that we need to form to get a lot of these things done. So I do think that idea, like sharing among the universities and somehow getting the sharing that is at the CEO's level in the utilities to go down to the lower levels, those are what I think. I think there's more capacity than we actually think, but it is so insular that it's not being used across the region.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that perspective. And I recall calling you many times, so thank you for that.
Well,
sure.
You can testify that the CEOs do talk to each other, right?
Yes, that is true. Sherry Ann.
I want to endorse partnerships and working together. That is really what we're going to need to be able to help us to ride out these shocks that we're seeing. And we're seeing shocks not just from climate change, we're seeing shocks as the pandemic has shown us that, our shocks to our energy systems. And we really have to, do work together. We have that educated population, and we just need to share our experiences, share our best practices, so that nobody has to ever reinvent the wheel. And so it's really fostering that interaction, which is one of the things that the CARICOM Energy Knowledge Hub is seeking to do, and what CCRE is seeking to do. We're getting the universities together. We can definitely work with CARILEC to get our other energy practitioners together so that we can learn from each other. We have, I'd say, 99% of the knowledge that we need for the region. It resides somewhere. So we really need to get facilitate that collaborative, transfer of knowledge and information.
Thank you so much. Crispin?
For me, I like to say partnership, but qualified partnerships here, please. First of all, partnership for equality, because I think sometimes, from my experience, sometimes when the government is trying to partner with the utilities, and especially when the utilities have legislation empowered by monopolistic legislation, sometimes there isn't the equality in the government where people can stand toe to toe with the utility and say, look, what you're saying is not correct. There is some expertise, but I think there needs to be more. So that is one aspect of it. The other aspect of it, I think, which is important, is to empower the public and the private sector in terms of what the opportunities are with renewables. So it's not just solar on roofs, but the opportunities in agriculture and so on, the applications. And so building that interest, that understanding will help to drive the demand, which in turn should help to break the barriers, which the policy and legislative barriers. If there's sufficient demand, at some stage, somebody's going to listen. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Such great perspectives. Really appreciate all the great insight. Before we close, we would like to take a closer look at one of our Vice Energy Transition Academy launch offerings next year. The Africa Mini-Grids program, which I believe is an exciting collaboration opportunity and point of learning and sharing for AOSIS countries. The Africa Mini-Grids program is a global environmental fund, GEF, funded program that is implemented by UNDP and RMI, which aims to increase access to electricity and sub-Saharan Africa by improving the financial viability and promoting scaled up commercial investment in renewable energy mini-grids. The program would also build a community of practice to scale up the impact of the mini-grid program. It's my pleasure to invite Ms. Camila Gonzalez, Global Energy Advisor, Africa Mini-Grids Program Coordinator, United Nations Development Program, to take the floor and give us a high-level preview of the Africa Mini-Grids Program. Camila?
Thank you, David. Jason, are you going to be showing slides for me? Perfect. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm really glad that I'll be covering UNDP's new flagship initiative for increasing energy access, the Africa Mini-Grids program. This program represents a coordinated, programmatic approach to deploying technical assistance and investments in the mini-grid sector, and it covers an initial 18 countries. It is certainly an approach that UNDP wishes to continue to build on. So that's why I say initial 18 countries. Hopefully we'll get to expand this to additional countries. So the link between AMP and today's panel is that basically AMP has been designed to provide a great learning opportunity and knowledge sharing opportunity. Also, it embeds peer networking, as has been mentioned, through communities of practice. And it has been designed to leverage partnerships. So I guess it is relevant for today's discussion and audience. Right now, we're still at the final design stage and will commence implementation in 2022. So just to say, this is a program that has been designed. I'll speak about it in a preview mode, but it will be launched next year and start implementation next year. So the slide you see here is basically the program structure. It is a program that consists of 18 national projects that will be supported by a regional chapeau project that will serve as a knowledge and coordination platform. This knowledge and coordination platform, of course, will interact directly with the national projects, but it's also called to interact with the outside of wider mini-grids ecosystem. So it is, in a way, both inward facing in that it deals with the projects themselves, the country level on the ground implementation, but it looks outward and interacts with various partners in the mini-grid sector. The total budget for the program is around $45 million in technical assistance. This is pure grant funding, and it's provided primarily by the GEF, who's the main donor. But this is basically a multi-partner effort. So UNDP leads implementation and has led the design stage in partnership with the Rocky Mountain Institute and the African Development Bank. AFDB will in fact be implementing a couple of the country projects, namely Angola and Madagascar. Finally, before we move on, and it's still on this slide, very important, national governments are key partners here because they are the ones who will ultimately implement the national projects, except for Somalia and perhaps Madagascar. So these are the main core program partners, which is not to say that they are the only program partners. AMP, like I said, has been designed to really link up to existing initiatives in the sector, which are plenty, and really collaborate with other partners doing interesting work in the sector. Great. So this slide here shows the initial 18 countries where AMP is focusing. First thing I would like to highlight is that this is a really interesting mix of contexts and challenges, very diverse. We have large and relatively more mature markets such as Nigeria and Ethiopia, but also smaller and nascent markets like Eswatini or Malawi. We'll be working in crisis settings such as Sudan and Somalia. We have small island developing states as well, like Comoros or Sao Tome and Principe. Some are Anglophone, some Francophone. So overall, I think this mix provides a unique opportunity for valuable knowledge sharing and South-South cooperation. And this program really seeks to enable those dynamics to take place and for these countries to interact with each other. A big value add of the AMP is that it will enable the support mechanisms needed for those countries to interact with each other. And for that to be possible, there's a bit of standardization that has been embedded into program design. Although tailored to national context, all national projects have a common components architecture. And as you can see in the left of the slide, those components are basically 4. So on component 1, policies and regulation, the countries will be working, or the projects will be working with governments to create the enabling environment for sustained investment in mini-grids. Policies, regulations, fiscal benefits, custom procedures, energy sector planning, all sorts of activities with government, the ministries in charge of the energy sector and regulators to develop the enabling environment needed for private sector to be able to come in. Component 2 will be piloting mini-grid investments and in most cases with private sector participation to demonstrate cost reduction opportunities. I guess I should have said this before, but the program has a very clear focus on cost reduction of mini-grids. The idea is to make mini-grids commercially viable, improve that commercial viability, and for that, piloting of mini-grid investments is really important. The component 3 will be designing or providing support for the design of financial instruments for mini-grid scale-up. And then component 4 will tap into digitalization opportunities and interfacing with the regional chapeau for knowledge and data sharing. I want to expand a bit on the mini-grid investment pilots, also to highlight the fact that there will be a very diverse mix of investments being deployed on the ground from which to learn and draw important insights. So approximately 40% of the budget on average is allocated to pilots. And the funds will be used as CapEx subsidies to cover part of the mini-grid investment costs. There will be 3 types of mini-grid pilots under AMP. Some will develop greenfield mini-grids to demonstrate the technology, particularly in nascent markets where there isn't familiarity with mini-grids yet, or to demonstrate a particular delivery model or business model. Others will work on adding a renewable energy generation to existing diesel mini-grids, so increasing the renewable energy fraction for those. And others will work on existing solar PV mini-grids to add productive uses of electricity. By adding productive users and increasing demand, these systems will improve capacity utilization and improve commercial viability. So very interestingly here, what we have is a mix of different types of pilots and also a mix of delivery models. So some of these pilots will be developed by public utilities themselves, community-based or cooperative-based organizations, and some others absolutely and totally by the private sector. What we want to be able to do here is accommodate national preferences as to what type of delivery model the government wishes to pursue in the sector, but ultimately seeking to facilitate, promote, and help countries partner with private sector in some way or form to really scale up mini-grid investments. We can move on, Jason, with the next slide, please. So let's look at the program delivery framework. As I said, there is a regional project which will act as a knowledge and coordination platform and support, as well as draw from the implementation on the ground across 18 national projects. So we already discussed the components for the national project. If we move on to the next slide, I'll speak a little about the regional project or platform components. Go back there. Basically, AMP relies on the regional project or the platform to connect the dots and make knowledge sharing possible, both across the national projects, but also within, with the mini-grid sector as a whole. So under component 1, the regional platform will be gathering, curating knowledge and disseminating it, but also developing additional knowledge tools or knowledge products that fill a gap. We really want to build on what already exists. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. What we want to use is the unique opportunity that this program provides as a distribution channel for using existing knowledge products, existing knowledge tools that can benefit project implementation. So it's a mix of curating and sharing knowledge, but also developing knowledge products that are informed by national project implementation. Component 2 is explicitly about providing the technical and operational support that may be needed by the 18 national projects. This will be based on demand in response to concrete asks from these projects, and the regional platform will respond with tailored technical and operational expertise as needed. Under component 3, and we've mentioned this before, is a highly curated community of practice that will be led by RMI and will provide stakeholders with a unique dialogue and collaboration space in which members from key institutions will participate. So regulators, ministers of energy, engineers, like we were saying a little while back, and key institutions will participate in this heavily curated communities of practice and have this opportunity to really share knowledge and learn from each other. Component 4 will promote digital technologies for mini-grid cost reduction. There's a huge opportunity in the use of digital tools and harnessing data from pilots to really contribute to cost reduction further. And finally, component 5, the regional project will be monitoring results from across the 18 national projects. We'll aggregate those results and we'll be able to report back to donors and other partners in terms of the progress and the results that the projects have been obtaining. A very interesting feature of this program is that any pilot receiving support under the program will be sharing pilot data with the regional platform. And for that, we'll be using smart meters, connecting directly to smart meters and remote monitoring equipment. We see this as a huge opportunity to really learn, gather insights from data, see what's working, what's not working, and learn quite a bit from a number of mini-grid pilots being implemented in tandem or simultaneously. So a very interesting feature. We're very excited about this. Finally, just to say that the interactions between this regional platform and, on the one hand, the national project And on the other, the wider mini-grid ecosystem are at the center of this program's value add. And we really hope that this framework will help the program develop a capacity building offer that is very responsive to actual on the ground implementation challenges that are being faced by participating countries. And at the same time, use this to be able to go beyond AMP participating countries and really benefit the wider mini-grids ecosystem in Africa. So I guess with that, I'll wrap up here. I'll pass it back to David, and thank you very much for the opportunity to present AMP.
Thank you so much, Camilla. There's so many parts that are going to be so value added to the Africa Mini Grids program. We look forward to its launch and execution. I'd like to take a moment. I know we're running a little behind time here, but we're just going to bring it to a close. I'd like to thank all our panelists for participating in this session today, and all of the persons who attended the event today. Thank you for taking the time to come out and be with us. We wouldn't be able to achieve a successful global energy transition without empowering the global South, without empowering global South leaders at the community level. Further capacity building is critical to addressing current climate and energy inequities that may be the biggest risk to a just future. This week, RMI released a report ensuring an equitable energy transition that looks to the Caribbean to co-create an actionable framework to ensure energy equity is integrated at every step of a nation's national energy transition. The report spotlights Caribbean perspectives and energy project case studies to be models for building equity and resilience globally. We can share more information. Feel free to go to our RMI website and you'll be able to download a copy of the report. In closing, I'd like to thank the Alliance of Small Island States for hosting this event and facilitating the opportunity for us to continue to learn and collaborate in our quest to address climate change. We look forward to continuing and to follow the exciting work of each of our speakers and your organizations. It is these collective efforts that will enable us globally to scale up the energy transition. Thank you to everyone, and we're closing just in time.
I guess we can leave now.
Yes, have a good day, everyone.
Okay, then take care. Tell Gary hi from Michelle.
Will do.
All right, take care.
Yes, you know, he's now in Glasgow, so.
I know that. I WhatsApped him and he responded saying he was in Glasgow.
Yes.
All right, take care.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.